Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel, and this story begins the second we stepped out of the truck. It was raining. Not a lot, just that annoying kind of drizzle that soaks your socks and makes your neck itch. I remember thinking how quiet the neighborhood was. No music, no barking dogs, just the soft hum of secrets. Benton whispered, "Are we really doing this?" But none of us answered. Not me, not Foster. We were already halfway to the front gate. The house was bigger than I expected. Fancy, modern, that kind of expensive minimalism that screams, "I host events no one talks about later." The curtains were drawn tight, but flashes of color leaked through the cracks. Red, violet, pulsing with the beat of low music. You could feel it in your chest. Whoever was inside didn't expect visitors. We didn't knock. We just pushed the door open. And there they were, our wives, lit by pink neon, laughing like strangers. Heather was wearing a dress I'd never seen before. Backless, shimmering. Not the kind of thing you wear to a girls' movie night. Like she told me. She didn't look like my wife. She looked like the version of her I wasn't allowed to know anymore. And then he touched her. Not a dance floor brush. Not an accidental nudge. A hand on her waist. Familiar. Comfortable. She didn't flinch. She leaned in. I didn't even realize I'd stepped forward until the door creaked behind me. She turned. Her smile cracked. The music didn't stop. But everything else did. She wasn't alone. None of them were. Mallory, Trina. They were all there, laughing in someone else's arms. And me? I just stood there. Damp socks. Heart in my throat. Regretting every time I ignored the signs. I wish I could tell you that was the worst part. But the truth is, the worst part hadn't even started yet. Heather's expression didn't shatter all at once. No, it fractured in stages. First was confusion, like maybe she thought I was a hallucination. Then came panic. The widening eyes, the frozen lips, the subtle step back as if I were some threat. And finally, anger, like I had invaded her space. The same woman who kissed me goodbye hours ago now looked at me like I was the one betraying her. Behind her, the man she had just been swaying with, tall leather jacket, smug grin that made my stomach twist, gave me a lazy once-over and said, "Well, this is awkward." Foster muttered something under his breath, but Benton was the first to actually move. He walked straight past Heather and into the crowd like a man on a mission. I couldn't move. I was stuck in that stupid doorway, one foot on hardwood, the other still wet from the rain, trying to decide whether I was dreaming or dying. Heather finally spoke. "Elwood, what are you doing here?" Not "I'm sorry." Not "it's not what it looks like." Just that sharp, defensive, like I had crashed her birthday party without a gift. I opened my mouth, but no sound came. The music was too loud, my thoughts too scrambled. I had followed her here for answers, but now that I had a front row seat, I didn't know what question to ask first. Around us, nobody cared. No one stopped dancing. No one apologized. This wasn't just a party. It was a secret world. And our wives, they belonged to it. Foster's voice broke through the haze. He was yelling at Trina near the bar. Something about betrayal, about lies. She laughed. Actually laughed. And Mallory? She didn't even pretend to look ashamed. She kissed the man beside her like we were ghosts. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. We didn't just walk in on a one-time mistake. We had stumbled into a second life they had built without us. And we weren't guests here, we were the joke. I think what hurt the most wasn't the touch, or the fact that she was wearing perfume I hadn't smelled in months. It wasn't the man beside her, or the strange flicker of guilt that passed too quickly across her face. It was the way she looked away after asking why I was there, as if she already knew this moment would happen, and had rehearsed how little she'd care. She turned her back to me like someone pressing mute on a call they didn't want to take. And just like that, I became invisible. In my own wife's eyes. In a room where I recognized every woman and not a single version of them looked familiar anymore. I tried to find words. Anything. But the music swallowed my thoughts. So I drifted. Walked past the glowing bar where strangers laughed over cocktails like nothing unusual was unfolding. I passed Mallory, who winked at me with the casual cruelty of someone who knew her betrayal had already been normalized. Trina was sitting on a guy's lap in the corner, sipping something red with her arms around his neck like it was prom night. And Foster had disappeared. Probably outside. Probably trying not to throw up. Then came the worst part, the snickering. From them. The men. The ones who weren't supposed to exist. One of them nudged the guy next to him and said loud enough for me to hear, "The husbands found the magic portal, huh?" Another said, "Took him long enough." They laughed. My ears burned. My chest felt like it was caving in. I wanted to run, but I couldn't let them see me flinch. Not yet. I made my way back to Heather, who was now pouring herself a drink, completely avoiding eye contact. I tapped her shoulder. She didn't turn around. I tried again, this time with words I barely recognized coming out of my mouth. "Is this what you do? When you say you're with them? This house?" Her laugh was dry. "Don't act like you didn't know something was up. Elwood, come on. You've been suspicious for months. You just didn't have the guts to ask." She turned then, and for the first time, I didn't recognize the woman in front of me. Her voice was sharp. Her expression wasn't apologetic. It was cold, defiant. "Why are you really here?" she asked. "To punish me? To rescue me from fun? Or just to ruin something you couldn't be part of?" And I had no answer, because maybe she was right. Maybe I had lost her long before that door ever opened. But none of us were prepared for what would happen next, when Benton finally snapped, and everything exploded in front of all of them. The moment I turned toward the hallway, I heard the slam, not like a door closing, but like someone had thrown their entire soul into it. Benton had reappeared, and he was no longer holding back. His fists were clenched, his tie half ripped from his neck, and his voice, when it finally cracked through the music, was unlike anything I'd ever heard from him. "Who's Nate?" he shouted. "Go ahead, Mallory. Tell everyone who the hell Nate is." The room didn't go silent, not immediately, but people started to pause. Some turned to look. Others kept drinking, half smirking like they'd seen this show before. Benton wasn't done. He stepped up onto the edge of the fireplace, towering over the confused crowd like a preacher about to rain down fire and brimstone. "You said you were at a yoga retreat. A yoga retreat. You even sent me pictures, Mallory. Do you know how stupid that makes me?" Mallory, standing halfway across the room near the bar, tilted her head like he was just another inconvenience. "Why are you yelling?" she said casually. "We're all adults here." That sentence hit me like a gut punch. We're all adults here. As if that excused the lies, the gaslighting, the betrayal. As if sneaking around, hiding entire relationships behind our backs, was just grown-up playtime. Then it all unraveled. Foster came stumbling back in, face pale, holding a phone. "You need to see this," he mumbled, waving it at me and Benton. On the screen was a video, blurry, shaky, but unmistakable. Trina, Mallory, Heather, laughing together in this exact house. Last month. With the same men. Only this time, Trina was filming it. She had posted it to a private shared album called No Judgment Zone. My knees went weak. I turned to Heather. She didn't flinch. "You weren't supposed to find that," she said with a flatness that chilled me. "It wasn't for you." And that was the moment it all sank in. They weren't ashamed. They weren't sorry. This wasn't a mistake. It was a lifestyle. One they'd chosen. One they'd curated and protected. And the only thing that had gone wrong tonight was that we found the door. Benton was shaking. Not the loud, theatrical kind of shaking people do when they're trying to prove a point, but the quiet, dangerous kind like a pot about to boil over. The phone in Foster's hand kept replaying the video, the audio crackling with the distorted laughter of our wives. Heather's voice was in it too, clear as glass. "If they ever find out, we'll just say it was a joke," she'd said. "Besides, they're too soft to do anything about it." Too soft. That phrase kept repeating in my head like a drumbeat. I wanted to say something. I wanted to scream, but my tongue was dry and stuck to the roof of my mouth. All I could do was stare at her, at this version of Heather I never knew existed. One who smirked at my hurt like it was cute, like I was the child in the room. Benton jumped off the fireplace ledge, stormed across the floor, and grabbed Mallory's wine glass. In one swift motion, he hurled it against the wall. It shattered. That did it. The music stopped. A few guests backed up. Someone shouted, "Hey, man!" But Benton didn't flinch. His voice cut through the room like a blade. "We've all been lied to. For months. You think this is just a lifestyle choice? Private event? No. This is a goddamn betrayal you turned into a hobby." Heather stepped in like she was defusing a toddler. "Elwood, come on. You don't even like going out. You hate crowds. You hate dancing. What were you expecting? That we'd all just sit at home while you watch documentaries?" I blinked. "So, this is because I'm boring?" "It's not about that," she said quickly. "It's about freedom. About feeling alive. You think I felt alive folding laundry while you fell asleep watching the history of cement?" Some people laughed. That crushed me more than anything. They were entertained. Our pain was their sideshow. Foster finally spoke. "You could have told us. You could have left. But you stayed. You faked it. You let us keep loving you while you were... whatever this is." Mallory rolled her eyes. "God, you're all so dramatic. We're not criminals." "No," I said, finally finding my voice. "You're worse. You're liars with no guilt." For a moment, no one moved. The party had dissolved into dead air and sidelong glances. Someone put down their drink. Someone else walked out. The spell had broken, and we were the ones who'd shattered it. And still, none of our wives followed us out that night. Not one. The front door slammed behind us, but the sound didn't feel final. It echoed in my chest like a gunshot that hadn't landed yet. Benton didn't speak. Foster kicked a trash can on the sidewalk and muttered something I couldn't hear. And me? I stood at the edge of the curb like an idiot, staring back at the glowing windows of that house, half hoping Heather would come running out. She didn't. None of them did. We didn't even speak in the car. Just sat there, soaked in silence and drizzle. Benton drove with white knuckles on the wheel. Foster stared at his phone like it could rewrite reality. And I just kept picturing Heather's eyes when she said I made her feel dead inside. Maybe she thought I wouldn't remember the exact words. But I did. I always do. When I got home, the house felt smaller. Her shoes were still by the door. Her book was still on the nightstand. Everything was there except her. I paced the hallway like something was about to collapse. And I guess something was me. Around 3 a.m., she finally came back. She didn't knock. She used her key. Walked in like nothing had happened. She set her purse down, took off her heels, and looked at me sitting on the couch like I was an overreacting child who refused to go to bed. "Can we talk in the morning?" she asked. That was it. No apology. No denial. Just a request to schedule the fallout like it was a dentist appointment. I stood up. My voice cracked when I spoke. "Is he someone important to you?" She didn't answer right away. That was worse than a yes. "Does it matter?" she finally whispered. My legs buckled. I sat back down like someone had cut my strings. She walked past me. Not a touch. Not a glance. Just gone, down the hallway, closing our bedroom door behind her. And I sat there, in the dark, still trying to figure out if I was more pathetic for following her to that party, or for letting her come back without a word. She didn't speak to me all morning. Not when she poured her coffee. Not when she passed behind me in the kitchen like I was air. Heather had always been sharp with words, but now she'd upgraded to something more brutal. Absence. Her silence wasn't passive. It was deliberate, calculated. Like she was waiting for me to explode, just so she could call me the problem. I didn't eat. Couldn't. I just sat at the dining table, staring at the ring-shaped watermark left by her mug. A ring. Of all things. Like the universe couldn't help but mock me. Around noon, she finally sat down across from me. No makeup. Hair tied back. Just Heather. But not the version I married. This Heather was cold steel wrapped in soft skin. "I'm guessing you're going to tell people," she said flatly. That hit harder than I expected. No remorse. No panic. Just PR strategy. Like she was damage controlling a press leak. I haven't told anyone, I muttered. Not even my brother. She nodded. Good. Because I'm not interested in having my name dragged through some pitiful sob story. Then she had the nerve to look tired. Like I had exhausted her. You lied to me, I said. For months. And now you're acting like I'm the one who ruined something. She didn't blink. You were never interested in my happiness, Elwood. You were interested in comfort. In stability. I gave you everything and all you gave me back was routine. Couldn't breathe. My hands trembled on the table. I wanted to argue, to scream, but the words got stuck behind the lump forming in my throat. Was it just one guy? I asked. Or were there more? Heather looked down at her hands, then back at me. Does it matter? Yes. God, yes, it mattered. But she didn't care. She wasn't hiding anymore. She had no reason to. She had walked so far past the line that shame wasn't even in view anymore. She stood up and pushed her chair back with a calmness that made my skin crawl. You need to figure out what you want to do, but don't expect me to beg. I'm not sorry. Then she walked away, and I realized something I hadn't admitted until that very second. I wasn't afraid of losing her. I was afraid of admitting that I already had. I didn't sleep that night. Not out of pain anymore, but clarity. Real, unfiltered clarity. The kind that hurts less because it no longer confuses you. Heather had crossed a line, burned the bridge, and kept walking like I was the one still standing in the flames. But what she didn't realize was that in her silence, in her coldness, she'd finally given me a gift. Freedom. The next morning, I packed my things. Not in a rush. Not out of rage. I folded my clothes carefully, like I was preparing for a long trip, but this time, the destination was peace. I left my wedding ring on the coffee table. Not as a statement. Not to hurt her. Just to say, you don't get to keep this version of me anymore. She came out of the bedroom as I zipped my suitcase. So, this is it? She asked, like she still couldn't believe I had it in me. I nodded. You wanted freedom, Heather. Now you've got it. And so do I. I didn't shout. I didn't beg. I didn't ask for closure or explanations or a single drop of apology. I walked out the door with no final words and no dramatic look back. 2 weeks later, I moved into a small apartment above a bookstore. Nothing fancy, but the silence here doesn't suffocate. It calms. I've reconnected with my brother, started journaling again, and even joined a small local history group that meets every Thursday. Turns out, people actually want to talk about the history of cement. Who knew? As for Heather, I don't know what she tells people. Maybe that I was the weak one, the boring one, the man who folded. But here's what I know. I'm no longer someone's afterthought. I'm my own priority. If you made it this far, thanks for sticking with me. I know I sounded like a mess when this began, but maybe that's what healing looks like at first. Not perfect, just honest. Tell me in the comments. What's a moment in history that gave someone unexpected freedom? This has been Reddit Confessions. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if this story made you feel something. See you in the next one.